Dear sisters, let us get closer to Allah. Dear sisters, let us learn of Rasulullah. Dear sisters, let's make the future bright. Dear sisters, mothers, daughters and wives. Dear sisters, let us get closer to Allah.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على الرسول الصادق الأمين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. My dear sisters and also my dear brothers in Islam, welcome to our program, Dear Sisters. We are honored that you're joining us this afternoon, and I'm really honored to be joined in the studio by our ongoing guest, Sheikh Ibrahim Zidan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you doing this afternoon?
Alhamdulillah, great.
Alhamdulillah, I'm great to have you here as always.
It's my
And
pleasure.
inshallah, hoping that you're with us all the time. Barakallahu feek. And my dear brothers and sisters in Islam, as you know, we're now in the 4th episode of this program. And this program is dedicated specially to our Muslim sisters. We're trying to revive one of the sunnahs of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ used to dedicate specific time after the women asked him that he needed to dedicate specific time for them to talk about their issues. So my dear sisters, for the next hour, this is your hour exclusively for you. Feel free, inshallah, to give us a call at any time at 002-02-38-555-248 or 249. Again, the number is 002-02-38-555-248 or 249. Share with us your thoughts, your comments, ask us your questions relating to any issues relating specifically to Muslim women or to the Muslim family in general, relationships that you have as mothers, daughters and wives, as the opening nasheed of the program says, inshallah. Any issues relating to divorce, any issues relating to raising children, to dealing with your husband in the best way, dealing with your parents, all types of relationships, inshallah. Feel free, inshallah, to give us a call at any time. The topic that we want to explore this afternoon, my dear sisters and also my dear brothers, is an issue that involves both brothers and sisters, and that is the issue of free mixing. Free mixing, what does free mixing mean, and what are the things that are allowed in Islam when it comes to gender relations, meaning men dealing with women and women dealing with men, the interaction between us, what is halal and what is haram, how do I know if I've went too far, what is the proof from the Quran and the Sunnah that free mixing in itself is not allowed in Islam, what are some of the examples that we do in our society today that can lead to a lot of harms and a lot of dangers that we might not think of the moment that we begin simply talking with the opposite gender. Sheikh Ibrahim Zidan, Jazakallah khairan for allowing us to speak about this very, very important topic.
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Most Wise, He created us men and women. And we are not living on the face of earth alone or isolated. Men are in need of women and women are in need of men. And as a result of that, there is relationships and complex relationships and relatives and so on and so forth. And if we look into the relationships or to the free mixing between men and women, it's either men and women that are related, blood related, they mix with each other, which is absolutely fine, it's halal. With the certain levels, of course, husband and wife is a separate case. A woman, for example, with her parents, with her uncles, things like this is definitely permissible for them to interact with one another in the normal way that everybody knows with families and so on. So this is one type that it's okay. This is not what we're dealing with. Also, the other extreme, when you have the indecent mixing, where people are committing clearly, openly sins, right? And this is also something that I believe every Muslim would agree that this is not something that is permissible. It's absolutely haram. But there's something in between, where people can free mix, men and women free mixing with each other. They're not blood related, and whether they're in the workplace, in the marketplace, in the schools, things like this. And this is where the real confusion comes up with a lot of Muslims.
That's the gray area.
Right.
We said there's the white and there's the black.
Right.
Now we're talking
and they
about
would say, what's
area.
wrong with that? People studying together or working together, men and women, things like this. So what are the guidelines and what are the rulings? This is what we need to learn and to understand based on the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And it's not based on our desires or what we think or different cultures, right? Some people think or look at it as different cultures would mandate how the relationship would be. This is not the case.
For example, someone would say that in my culture, when me and my wife visit another person and his wife, we can sit together in the same room. But in this other person's culture, it's not allowed. The women sit alone and the men sit alone. So you're saying that there are universal Islamic principles that we should all follow.
Right. And this is why we as Muslims, the thing that governs our life is the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. This is what we need to go back and see what's in the Quran, what's in the life of the Prophet ﷺ, and how men and women used to interact at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So this is what we need to deal with, inshallah.
Let's take a phone call from Sister Asma from the UAE. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. How are you?
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. How are you doing, sister?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
I
Go
have
ahead.
a question which is not about today's topic, but it was very important for me to ask you.
That's fine. Go ahead.
About the prostration, what we are doing while we are reading the namaz. Is it same as the man or it's different?
Okay. Jazakallah khairan.
The sister referring to sujood, prostration. And the reason for this question is some said that the sujood of the woman is different than the sujood of men. First, the salah for men and women are absolutely the same. And the Prophet ﷺ, when he said, Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli, pray like in the same way that you saw me praying, there's no difference between men and women. Whether it's in the position of the hands in the salah or anything, they're all the same. Except the only position that some of the ulama, they talked or they mentioned a difference between men and women is in the position of the sujood. They said for the women to be all together. For men, as we know that it is from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ to make your arms wide, in which even the Prophet ﷺ, his arm, the whiteness of his armpit will be shown. But for women, if she can get her stomach closer to her legs, something that would make her sujood all together, this is something that is good, so that she's not exposed in the position of the sujood. This is the only valid opinion when it comes to the differences between men and women. Other than that, there's no differences whatsoever. So yes, there is a slight difference, but just making the body together, if it's correct to say that, if it's understood.
Makes sense. I picked up on a word that you used in the beginning. You said Allah the most wise when you're talking about male-female relationships, because you could have used any other word. You could have used the most merciful, the most gracious, any other word, but you chose the word wise. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that created us, and He put inside of us this desire to interact with the opposite gender, and He also gave us the guidelines on what is correct and what is not correct. So let's begin talking about the guidelines when dealing with the opposite gender in that gray area that we talked about.
There are more than one aspect to it, but basically this gray area, it is not permissible also for men and women to free mix, unless it's a necessity in matter of buying and selling. A woman, for example, going to court, she has to face the judge, for example. Things of that nature, that it's a necessity. Other than that, for people to choose to be in a gathering together, men and women, workplace, schools, studying, things like this, this has to be avoided. And women should be on their own and men should be on their own. And whether we see the wisdom, of course the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very clear in this, but this is something that in the most purest place on the face of earth, which is the masajid, the houses of Allah, the Prophet ﷺ ordered the women to be in the back of the masjid and the men in the front, and there's hadith related to that, of course.
We're coming to the proofs from the Quran and the Sunnah right now about this very important topic. We'll go back to it inshallah after we take this phone call from Sister Hawa from Nigeria. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Please, I want to ask a question. For a married woman to be working in an organization and she's mingling with some men, is it good in Islam?
When you got the question, right? Okay, inshallah. Jazakallah khairan. Thank you so much, sister. Let's take another phone call from Kamila. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Yes, yes.
Brother, I have a question. Like when we stay in the home, and if we are staying with our brother-in-law within the home, do we need to do the hijab of the face as well, or only the proper covering of the body will be enough along with the hair. Or we have to do the hijab of the face also with our brother-in-law in the family.
Specifically asking about niqab, right?
Yeah.
Okay, inshallah.
Of the
Jazakallah
face.
khair. We'll answer you bidnillah ta'ala. Answer Hawa's question. I didn't quite get the question because I was listening my earpiece to the next
She's
question.
asking about a married woman working in an organization where men and women are working together, which is basically what we're talking about. The ruling originally, yes, this is not permissible for men and women to be in such an environment interacting with one another. This is the norm of the ruling, right? When it comes to specific cases, this is something that has to be dealt specifically. But the evidence of that, first in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and to the ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he said subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَإِذَا سَأَلْتُمُهُنَّ مَتَاعًا فَاسْأَلُوهُنَّ مِنْ وَرَاءِ حِجَابٍ, that if you ask them for anything, ask them from behind a hijab, from behind a curtain, from behind something that conceals them, right? And this is a very clear statement. And this is something that was practiced at the time of the Prophet ﷺ after the verses of hijab was revealed and after the Prophet ﷺ.
But some people say that this is something specifically for our Muslim, the Muslim sisters, not all the Muslim sisters, but the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, the mothers of the believers.
Right. This actually never been said by any of the scholars of the religion of Islam. If anybody goes back to any tafsir of this verse, it's consensus among the ulama that this is for all Muslims, because in the same verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَأَقِمْنَا الصَّلَاةَ وَأَتِينَا الزَّكَاةَ وَأَطِعْنَا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ. Establish the salah and pay the zakah and be obedient to Allah and His Messenger. And this is not a specific order, only to the wives of the Prophet ﷺ. So it's for all Muslims.
Jazakallah khairan. Brother Tahir from Sudan, Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam. Hello.
Yes, brother, go ahead.
Yeah. My wife doesn't not pray at all.
Your wife does not pray?
Yeah.
Okay, inshallah.
I don't know what happened. I don't know what to do.
Is this something that has been ongoing since you started, since you got married, or did both of you not pray and then you started practicing, or how did it happen? Brother Tahir? Okay, we'll go ahead and take Sister Asma from Nigeria. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Yes, sister.
I have a question. It's concerning an unmarried lady who puts on makeup. Like, I have a lecturer in school who always talks to me not to like put on makeup and then put on the hijab to help makeup. And so I really want to find out what Sheikh's take is on it. And a married woman, he also told me a married woman is not allowed to like wear makeup out if she's actually married. So I really want to find out if how true it is.
She's not allowed to wear makeup after she gets married?
Out of her house.
Out of her house. Okay, inshallah.
Yeah.
We'll answer, inshallah, Sister Asma.
Thank you very much.
Barakallahu feek. Let's go ahead and answer Brother Tahir's question.
Before that, there was the brother-in-law question?
The brother-in-law question in the call.
Right?
Exactly, yes.
See, the brother-in-law, specifically, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned something about that specific relationship. We know that there are maharim, blood relatives, specific relationships where it's permissible for women to sit normally with them, showing the face, the hair, part of, the neck, the normal clothing that she would wear at home, like the father, the uncles, and so on. But
the father-in-law also, right?
The father-in-law also, yes, after she would get married. But one of the ones that are still forbidden for her, he's a stranger to her, she's a stranger to him, meaning they can get married, right, if she divorces, is the brother-in-law. And the Prophet ﷺ, when he was asked about that specific case, Al-Hamu, أَفَرَأَيْتَ الْحَمُ. Al-Hamu is the husband's relative, or specifically the brother of the husband, the brother-in-law. The Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Hamu al-Maut. When he was asked ﷺ about that, he said, Al-Hamu, the brother-in-law or the husband's relatives, is death. And the two words were mentioned, meaning that this is even more severe and more to be protected and to avoid the free mixing with the brother-in-law, because if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbid something happens as a result of the free mixing, that causes maybe death in the
So there's
family.
extra caution for those who are close.
Right.
Kind of opposite of what we do in real life. We say, okay, this person is my brother, what can happen?
And that's why a lot of people, they would look at it and they would say, well, we're not having any evil thoughts in our hearts. What's wrong with, just one family? This is not about that. This is about the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best what's inside of us. And the rulings or such rulings won't come for specific people only. won't say, well, if your heart is pure towards others, then this is the case. If not, it's otherwise. It's dealing with all human beings, with different cases and different shapes and so on. And that's why we need to submit ourselves to protect ourselves from the evil within our own selves. But again, this is the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
And we should try to avoid the fitna before getting a chance to be put in it in the first
Definitely.
place.
And the shaitan, he would work so hard in these types of things to cut and sever the relationship, which is even another crime. So it's not just about the sin that might be involved, but even more when it comes to...
You're breaking up all the family ties.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So the sister should wear niqab in front of her her brother-in-law,
Right.
just like she would wear it in front of anybody in the street.
Right.
Okay. Jazakallah khairan. Stick brother Tahir says his wife is not praying. I tried asking him, is this something that is new? Maybe she was praying before and then she stopped praying, or did she not pray from the beginning? Let's try to get more information, but let's try to answer them generally, inshallah.
Regardless, because if it's from the beginning, of course, a person has to choose the proper wife, and the same thing for the guardian of the wife and so on. But say it happened, or a person repented to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is the case. First, and I want to be very careful when I say this, the person should reflect upon himself first. This is something that maybe he is doing something wrong, he has a certain sin, is not being obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He needs to fix what's between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and for himself as the husband to repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to increase his salah, right? And at the same time advise his wife and explain to her clearly, whether it's him or someone that is of authority to her, someone that is a scholar in the religion of Islam, she understands that this is what is really true, or the truth is that there is no such a thing as being a Muslim without making salah. The covenant between us and them, meaning the disbelievers, is the salah. Whoever abandons it, the Prophet ﷺ said he had disbelieved. So this is the minimum requirement for a Muslim. You cannot be a Muslim without making the salah. So someone to explain that to her, and to be patient with her, and to help her, right? And to make it easy for her to make sure that she would pray each salah. Say, for example, he tried and nothing worked, and she is just, very clearly that she won't do that. Then there's no purpose and there's no reason for the marriage to continue. But this is not something to be done right away. A person has to do the best he can and be patient.
He has to be patient. He has to understand that he's the leader of the house.
Right. And to explain it in the most decent way, and to make sure that the matter is very clear to her, and to help her, again, to save herself from the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Sister Isma is asking about wearing makeup outside of the home.
Adorning oneself for women, this is exclusive for the husband, and also for those who are maharim, in the proper way, in the decent way, that would be allowed within these boundaries. Other than that, other than the husband, other than her blood relatives, it's not permissible whatsoever for the woman to show any form of adornment, any beauty whatsoever. And that's why this is something that definitely is not permissible.
But
If she wears it and she covers totally from head to toe, nobody sees her, there is no harm in this, of course.
But what about putting eyeliner, a lot of eyeliner on the niqab?
Right, this is definitely not permissible. This is a form of fitna and a form of beauty that the woman would show, even with the slightest thing. Even as we know that perfume is forbidden for a woman to put a perfume on and to go outside of her home this way. And again, I would like, when we mention these things and people might think this is being very strict, this is not being very strict. We have to look into the goals of the religion of Islam. One of the maqasid, or the goals of the religion of Islam, is to protect one's honor and dignity, and to protect the offsprings, the generations to come. And the family is to be protected. This is one of the means to protect the family, which is a very strong unit in any society, from any evil. We know that in the religion of Islam, if zina, fornication, is forbidden, and it's a major sin, and everybody would agree to this, then the perfection of the religion of Islam, that it cut all the leads that would lead to it. It doesn't make sense that it would say it's forbidden for people to commit adultery, but then free mix as much as you want, be fitna to one another, right? Fitna, fatin and maftun. Someone that is affected by the fitna and someone that is the source of the fitna. You bring them together, then who can protect himself? And this is what the Prophet ﷺ said in more than one hadith.
You're playing with fire at that moment.
Right. So this is the perfection of the religion of Islam. The rulings would serve that purpose, so that we are protected. And another meaning, actually, as men and being protective for his wife and sister and daughter and so on, if somebody would look at them in a sinful way, this hurts any free person, right? And as a result of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected you by making sure that people are lowering their gaze, and also for the women to cover themselves so that nobody is betraying one another. And that's why one of the rulings is that we're supposed to lower our gaze. And this is clearly mentioned in the Quran. So if people are mixing together, but they have to lower their gaze, then where's the mixing then?
Exactly. I mean, it doesn't make sense. How are you going to sit there and talk with someone and joke and smile and laugh and talk about what happened to you yesterday and what happened without looking at that person? And then the look begins the desire to that person.
Right. And we are human beings. And whoever denies the fact that if he sees something he likes and then he does not go to the next level, right, this is actually being or lying to oneself. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected ourselves from the evil within, and that's why we have to witness that and be followers of the way of the Prophet ﷺ.
My dear brothers and sisters, feel free inshallah to continue giving us a call on in this segment inshallah and the next segment with any questions that you have relating to relationships in general, relating to the issue that we're talking about today, which is free mixing between men and women, at 002-0238-555-248 or 249 inshallah. Sheikh Ibrahim, I want us to imagine a scenario right now, okay? A person and his wife want to visit their friends, another person and his wife. What is the correct protocol in order to make this meeting successful, enjoy oneself and enjoy our time, but at the same time not commit haram?
The proper way is that people will go to others' places, homes and so on, and men will sit together in a room and women will sit together in a room. And the kids can go back and forth, right? But men should have their own and the women should have their own thing. We need to create these two different environments in our homes, in the masajid, activities. A lot of women, for example, they complain that the masajid is only men are doing things and the women are ignored. Women need to also learn the religion of Islam, and they take the means to learn, and for them to have their own circles and to learn the religion of Islam. And they like to do certain things, maybe the men, they won't like to do it, whether it's cooking or things of that nature, raising the children and so on.
Sister Aisha from Saudi Arabia, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam, brother. I had this question I would like to ask to Sheikh.
Yep, go ahead.
It's alright for a Muslim woman to wear short clothes at her home when there's no one else, like just her husband, no one else, and in front of other girlfriends,
to
women relatives
wear
of her.
short clothes? Sister Aisha, did you say to wear short clothes?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Short clothes, like mini skirts and like things like that, westerns.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan. We'll go ahead and answer you, inshallah. Barakallahu feek. Wearing clothes, of course, not in front of men, short skirts, dressing as she would dress with her own relatives, with her friends, her sisters.
With the husband, of course, if it's between the wife and the husband, this is definitely something permissible. It's a good thing, of course, and this is something out of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But other than the husband, say the women together, of course there's no hijab is ordered here, but they should try to be as decent as they can without revealing too much, right? Yes, of course they can wear decent clothing, but not too short and not too revealing, right? But something that is decent, where the normal clothes are being, people that were not imitating the disbelievers in their extreme fashion that can reveal so much.
We need to talk about
within the decency.
We need to talk about at these gatherings taking pictures and videotaping the events. We need to talk about it after we take a phone call from Sister Amatullah from the United Kingdom. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Go ahead, sister.
Assalamu alaikum. I just wanted to ask that my son has been, he's working for a company, and he's been asked to teach a class of girls who are about 40, and he's unmarried. The son is unmarried. He's young. He's working for a company which is asking him to teach a class of girls versus about age of 14. 12 to 14, is it permissible, and if not, how am I supposed to...
Okay, so your son, he's not, because the voice is a little bit low, your son is not married and he's working for a company. What's the issue with the company?
And
from time to time they will be asking him to teach the girls. How does he speak to his superiors?
What's the problem with the company that he's working at?
Sorry?
What's the problem with the company that he's working at? And if you can just higher your voice just a bit, Sister Amatullah, because we can't hear you too well. Go ahead.
He's doing a job. I can't hear him on the phone.
Okay, I'm not quite getting the. Did you get the question?
No, I didn't hear actually the details.
I mean, he's working at a company and he's not married. This is what I got. Let's go ahead and take Sister Fatma from Saudi Arabia, and then we'll try to figure out that question. Inshallah. Sister Fatma, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, dear brother and Sheikh. I just want to ask a question. Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you very well. Go ahead.
Actually, I want to ask a question about going to the doctors, actually. Can a Muslim woman go to a specialist who's a male doctor?
Excellent question.
For checking, Actually, I have some problem with the head, and my brother-in-law is a doctor, actually, he's a neurosurgeon. Can I go and check with the male doctor or something, because there is no lady doctors available?
بإذن الله تعالى, we'll answer you. جزاك الله خيرا. بارك الله فيك. Let's go ahead. We can't really figure out the question from before. We don't have too many details in order to be able to answer it specifically. Sister Amatullah, if you can, inshallah, give us a call back and clarify the question a bit, that would be great, inshallah. We couldn't hear you. The voice was really low. Sister Fatima from Saudi Arabia is asking about going to a male doctor when there's a lack of female doctors, maybe depending on the location that she's in or the specialty of that specific situation.
This is a very good example when it comes to free mixing, right? This is a situation where it's permissible in certain cases, and the order of dealing with this matter is like this. First, a woman, if she needs to go to a doctor, she goes to a Muslim female doctor, right? If she is good and she is, well and so on. If there is none, then she goes to a female non-Muslim doctor, if there is such a thing. If not, then she goes to a Muslim male doctor, right? There is righteous and knows the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
And has a good reputation in the community.
If not, then to a Muslim doctor, maybe there is of less religious behavior and so on. And then at the last is to go to someone that is non-Muslim. But say, for example, in the case when there is the only one present is a male doctor, specialist, then it's permissible to go with a mahram, and she doesn't go alone, and he's not with her alone in a room closed. She has to have a mahram with her. And it is not permissible for him to see more than what he needs to see, right? And to do more than what he needs to do. So, for example, if a doctor is doing a surgery, right, they would prepare the person for him, so that the women, meaning the nurses and so on, so that when he enters the room, he only sees the area that he needs to work in, and that's it. So if things are done in such a way, and there's no other alternatives, this is definitely permissible, and there's no harm in this.
SubhanAllah, Islam is the religion of ease, and its goal, SubhanAllah, one of the main goals is to make life easy for us and to give us what's best for us.
There's disasters, actually, we'd see it in America and Europe when it comes to doctors, gynecologists, and cases of court cases where people take many years in prison because of not respecting this.
Yes. Sister Amina from the United States, Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum salam. Go ahead, sister.
Regarding Salah.
Phone line is cutting off a bit. I'm not able to get the call. Please, Sister Amina, please try to give us a call back, inshallah. We're having problems today from the United States and the UK. So, inshallah, please try to give us a call again. Let's take Sister Asma from Nigeria. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Yes, Sister, alaikum salam.
Sorry, I called earlier and that's concerning makeup.
You had the question about makeup.
It was on two cases. Yes, so I actually asked, what if you're not married and you put on the makeup out and all that? Is it permissible?
If you're not married.
I want to also know what's the take on a Muslim lady who is married and she is later not attached to her husband sexually, like takes like a year, 8 months before they get attached. I want to know the Islamic ruling on that.
Before they get what? I'm sorry?
I want to know the Islamic ruling on a lady who is married and then they are not attached like sexually, like after a year or 8 months without any problem. The husband just feels, okay, fine, he doesn't want to have sex with his wife and all that. So I really want to know what the
Islamic ruling of that is. Okay, inshallah.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll answer it. Does it make a difference if the sister is married or not married when it comes to wearing makeup outside of the home?
No, of course, there's no difference. And again, it's beautifying herself to the non-mahrams, to other than her husband, even if she's not married. This is exclusive for the one that would she get married to, and it's not for anybody else. So there's no difference between married women or non-married women with beautifying oneself, and one of which putting makeup on.
Okay, she was explaining the first part of the question. The second part of the question, we'll take it after we take a phone call from Sister Hawa. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Yes, sister, go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Sister Hawa.
My question is, can a Muslim woman switch to a non-Muslim male?
Can she do what? I understand Muslim
can she
female.
Switch to a non-Muslim man?
Can she what?
Can a female Muslim switch to a non-Muslim male?
Get married to a non-Muslim male?
No, preach.
Preach. Oh, that's a very, very important point. We want to talk about mixing when it comes to da'wah, bi'idhnillah ta'ala, in the second part of the program. Jazakallah khairan, thank you so much, Sister Hawa. Let's take Ayman. We're going to try, maybe we won't take a break today, I'm not sure. We're trying to take a break, but we're not able to. Sister Ayman, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Go ahead, sister.
I want to ask a question concerning when a woman that is pregnant needs a whole year Ramadan. If she wants to make up the fasting, is it that she can make it up maybe a 5 or 2 in a week, or just maybe at her own convenience, or she have to do it all 30 days consecutively? Then my second question is, can a fasting person apply such drugs like eye drops, ear drops, or take injection, or inhale and mentholatum for running nose and all that? Then the third question I have is this kneeling down to greet elderly people or our parents. Some people say it's not permissible in Islamic rules, some say it's permissible, but my own opinion, that's the way I used to greet my mother and my father and other elderly people, just to respect them. So I want you to educate me on those issues. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Jazakallah khairan. Barakallah feek. Brothers and sisters, we are going to take a break right now, inshallah. So we'll see you after the break with more of your questions, and we'll answer these questions here right after the break, bi'idhnillah ta'ala.
Dear sisters, let us get closer to Allah. Dear sisters, let us learn of Rasulullah.
Tech Talk. We're going to look how to create a website and which Islamic websites to actually visit. What inspired you to create your own website?
One of the challenges that we face every day, the site or the application should be accessible worldwide. I remember when I was younger, one of my friends asked me to convince his father to get him a desktop. Even the laptop, if you compared both of them in terms of cost, laptop roughly cost twice the money if you compare it with the desktop.
Hackers, the word hackers, most of the youth people are very interesting about that word. They say, hey, I'd like to be hacker, because there is a type of hacker doing great job. We call them white hat hacker.
Fun for everyone.
3, 2, 1.
What will I be when I grow up? What will I be when I grow up? What will I be when I grow up?
The firefighter uses what to control fire? Water or rocks? Now these two teams go head to head on pulling the blue rope. Now if one person goes over this line right here, the other team loses. Very simple rules. This challenge is worth 5 points.
What will I be when I grow up? What will I be when I grow up? What will I be when I grow up as a Muslim man?
Fun is for everyone, so get ready to have some fun. Check out these cool competitions between kids. It's important to have fun, and it's also important to be a good sport. So tune in to Fun for Everyone. You don't want to miss it.
When I grow up, what will I be when I grow up as a Muslim man?
Dear sisters, let us get closer to Allah. Dear sisters, let us learn of Rasulullah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers and sisters in Islam. Welcome back to our program, Dear Sisters. And we're continuing, inshallah, to take your phone calls at 002-0238-555, 248 or 249, inshallah. And we have a few pending questions from the last segment. Do we have a phone call on the line? I believe we have Sister Hawa. Sister Hawa, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. I want to ask a question again.
Okay.
For example, a woman have a medical problem in the hospital, and she explained to her husband that the doctor asked her to desist from any stress. But the husband doesn't want to understand. What is her relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
Okay, what is she trying to explain to the husband?
Yes, with the husband. She's pregnant and she has been having miscarriage. So the pregnancy now is on, and the doctor asked her to desist from any stress.
Okay, she's having a miscarriage. What does the doctor have to do with it?
Pardon?
She's having a miscarriage. Is she speaking to the doctor?
Yes, she's having a miscarriage on and off. But now she's pregnant, and the doctors asked her that she should not stress herself too much. And she explained to her husband, and the husband doesn't want to understand. So what is her situation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
Okay, I get in the entire question except for one thing. I think I may get what you're trying to say, but I want you to explain it to me. She had a miscarriage, and the doctor told her something that her husband is not understanding. What is that thing that the doctor said?
So the doctor asked her not to go on stressful something like sexual intercourse.
Okay, I understand your question. I got it now. Jazakallah khair. Barakallah feek. Let's go ahead and begin answering this question that we just got from Sister Hawa. She's saying that she had multiple miscarriages in order to just to be on the safe side, and maybe specifically in her case, this is something that's needed. The doctor is telling her that she should not have marital relationship with her husband during the period of pregnancy, and the husband does not understand this. What is the advice to her?
Well, if this is something clearly mentioned, and again, the question usually we answer according to the question. So if what is being said is true, and the doctor is a trustworthy person, and he understands the importance of the relationship between husband and wife in Islam and so on, and if he said so, then the husband should understand, and she would not be committing sin if she refuses in a nice way, and she can fulfill his desire in other different means, but then he should understand what the doctor says, because otherwise it can cause harm to her. So somebody has to tell him, explain to him and so on.
Sister Ayman was asking about also a question related to pregnancy. Alhamdulillah, she gave birth, and she's asking she gave birth during Ramadan. So how can she make up that fast? Should she do it on consecutive days, or can she do it on and off based on how she's feeling?
For a woman, when she's pregnant and she gives birth, and of course she does not fast when she is in the after birth bleeding, she make up these days. And it doesn't have to be consecutive. It can be 2 days a week, it can be 1 day a week, it can be the month of Sha'ban. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be consecutive. And as long as she can do her best to do it before the next Ramadan. If not, and the next Ramadan came on and she didn't make up the days, there's no harm. She can still make them after the month of Ramadan is over.
SubhanAllah, such a beautiful and a simple religion that is, SubhanAllah, fully trying to make us get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It reminds me of the ayah, Wallahu yuridu an yatub alayk. Subhanallah.
To
And
make
Allah
it easy for us
wants to
worship
forgive
Allah
you.
subhanahu.
Subhanallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making things so easy for us and giving us so many ways in order to worship Him if we have the correct intention and of course if we're following the Quran and the Sunnah.
MashaAllah, and this is how we should look into things. The purpose of our life is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And where is that worship in our life with the perfect love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the perfect submission? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it easy for us to worship Him.
See, sometimes we have a very weird concept, in my opinion, where we basically think, okay, these are restrictions, these are hudud, these are things that we're not supposed to do, and we're going to suffer so that we can enjoy the next life.
Right.
Is that true?
That's not true like that in an absolute sense. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, anything that is forbidden, you would find the alternative of it in a halal way.
Subhanallah.
Right? And people need to look at the overall picture. We sometimes become selfish when it comes to desires. I remember a statement by one of the scholars at the time of the Ottoman Empire, when he was sitting, and I think we mentioned that before, he was sitting with European politicians. And they asked him, why your women are not sitting with us like we do, free mixing. He said a very clear and strong statement. He said, because they don't want to give birth from other than their husbands. See, people do not see this, and that's what, for example, Sheikh Bakr Abu Zayd rahimahullah, he said, most of the people, they are ignorant of the outcome of the beginning of things. You know, maqasid al-bidayat. You start something, you're not really aware of what's that leading you to. And that's why the wahy, the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make this clear to us. We might not see the outcome of it, but this is when it comes to matters of submission, because the outcome of what we do, if we obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is the happiness on the face of earth and in the hereafter.
I remembered the question that was missing in my mind. Remember during the break I was telling you there's a question that I didn't write it down, I don't remember it. I remembered it. It was the sister who was asking about preaching to a male.
Yes.
The
da'wah.
The da'wah. And that takes us, we can answer her question specifically, and that takes us to a bigger issue. Can giving da'wah to the opposite gender be one of the entrances of shaitan instead of being one of the entrances to guidance?
See, da'wah is such a beautiful act of worship, and the best thing and the best speech is to call others to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's the work of the messengers of Allah. But this also have guidelines, so that it does not lead us to what is a sin and what disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's not the da'wah is not an idol that we worship, it's a mean to seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why men need to make da'wah and preach to men, and women need to preach to women. Men, they would preach to women with the guidelines behind a curtain in the masjid, in places, teaching the women there's no harm as long as it's done in the proper way, lowering the gaze behind the curtain and so on. But preaching to a man and giving da'wah to the man, this is like this in a free mixing way, this is not permissible whatsoever.
So can we advise the sister to hand off the task to a righteous brother?
Right.
Maybe one of her relatives, or maybe the imam of the masjid, or one of the callers to Allah.
The same thing for the brothers. And they would find, sometimes some of them, they would say there's nothing wrong with that. You refer the sister to another sister.
Yes.
And we keep it like this. Even in matters of like the internet and things like that, people need to observe that and to make it totally away from being free mixing.
This is such a vast topic. Inshallah, we'll continue talking about it after we take Brother Abu Muhammad from Sudan. We have a lot of phone calls from Sudan today, mashallah. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Muhammad.
Alaikum salam, كيف حالك?
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Go ahead, brother.
Yes, I have a question.
Please.
In some certain countries, it is very difficult to avoid free mixing. Okay. Can we consider this as a part of necessity, maybe, sometimes?
Excellent question. Excellent question. We'll answer you بإذن الله تعالى. الضرورات تبيح المحظورات. This is what he's asking about. In this specific case, maybe in his special situation or in some countries he's not able to avoid free mixing. Does that give us a rukhsa in order to engage in free mixing?
It depends on what place we are talking about. If it's someone that is under his authority, your home, right? You have authority over your household. So you do not allow sins in your household. So we cannot say it's a necessity. People will be upset with us. We need to seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. When people in your home, then they should abide by your rules, right? And your rules is according to the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, in a decent way, in a good way. and have the certainty that if you're seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make things easy for you, will make them also pleased with you. Even if it comes after some time, eventually they will. Why? Because we're seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. But you're a man, and you're the one that's supposed to support your household, and you need to work. And the only place that you work is places where there is free mixing. And your job is halal, the institution is halal, but people are working, men and women together. Then in that case, it's permissible for the man to work, but he has to lower his gaze to avoid the non-job related type of conversation and to be away from this. The reason why we say for women they should not do that, because men are the maintainers of women. We're the men in their families, they're supposed to support them.
Unless, of course, the woman has an absolute necessity. She's a single mother, for example, or as we mentioned in the last episode, a sister who her husband may not be making enough money, and the local imams and the local sheikh said that is the case.
Right. And that's one of also the sad issues for us as Muslims nowadays, in which communities, they should support a case like this. So that the woman in any community, she is honored and dignified, that she doesn't have to go and work in such environments. She should be given what is enough for her to live a goodly life.
Sister Maryam from the UAE, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, brother.
Go ahead, sis.
Yes, I just want to ask regarding about the, alternative ways, because I myself wasn't born a Muslim. And just lately I went into Islam, alhamdulillah. And then now I want to ask, because my parents is very devoted Christians, very, very religious one. I try to convince them by phone that like this, but in our country it's very hard. Like you cannot find Muslims in our place. It's very, very remote area. And now we don't have any idea about Islam before, and even me, I don't have any idea about Islam. Just in TV, but the TV there, we know that it's a bias, and it's always they capture about terrorists, about Islam. That's why my parents also don't have, but my parents, alhamdulillah, they're very religious. But now my problem is that I don't know how to convince them, and because myself is still a practicing Muslimah. Now how can I, but I tell my parents, because I heard someone that if you just tell your parents about the Shahada, but I tell my mother about it, about La ilaha illallah, like that, but I'm not fulfilled, because still she doesn't know what it's all about.
Are your parents Hindu?
What I'm going to do to help them.
Sister Maryam, are your parents Hindu?
Pardon, brother?
Are your parents Christians or are they Hindus?
Christians,
okay. Jazakallah khair, and we'll answer with quick advice to Sister Maryam.
Right. Well, explaining to the people in general the meaning of the Tawheed and the oneness of worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially if they are Christians, they are closer than anyone else. So they believe in Allah. They believe in God being the creator, the sustainer, and so on. And the problem is that they associate partners with Allah, and they do not believe in Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So explain to them that since he is the creator, the sustainer, worship him alone. This is the message of Jesus, this is the message of Moses. And one of the very strong points, and again, the sister can refer to many of the talks of the specialized scholars, that talk about these matters, but very clear statement that you can mention. Everybody believes in Ibrahim alayhi salam, Abraham. Ask them, what was the religion of Abraham that everybody believes in? Did Abraham worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one in the heavens, or did he worship Jesus, the Son of God, for example? Of course, he did not worship Jesus, because Jesus was not created then, right? So this is what we need to go back to, the religion of Abraham, because the religion of God should be the same religion, one religion, and that is worship the one in the heavens. Because was Ibrahim alayhi salam deviated from the truth, for example? He was worshipping the wrong God. So convincing them, and try the best, and listening to many of the lectures that talks about that specific issue, and educate yourself about matters of Tawheed, and the meaning of La ilaha illallah, and the message that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent to all the messengers, and just convey the message. And once you do that, you did your job. And guidance is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them, for their guidance, and so on.
Unfortunately, we ran out of time today. We did manage, alhamdulillah, to take a record number of 14 phone calls. MashaAllah, I can still hear in my earpiece the phones ringing when the director was talking to me a moment ago. So, my dear brothers and sisters,
inshallah, the topic, that specific topic for the viewers, maybe we didn't give it, the overall point of it, so that it's not misunderstood. Inshallah, we'll discuss it.
We'll continue talking about it. Such a vast and such a very important topic. And my dear brothers and sisters, we apologize if we were not able to take your phone call today, inshallah. I hope that we answered most, if not all, of the questions that you asked us today. We apologize for some of you who have asked multiple questions. I know a sister, for example, had 3 questions. We only got to one of her questions in order to be able to accommodate everyone. Bi-idhnillah ta'ala, we will see you again next week at 5 p.m. Mecca time. Until then, please take care of yourselves, each other, and make dua for the Muslim Ummah. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Dear sisters, let us get closer to Allah. Dear sisters, let us learn of Rasulullah. Dear sisters, let's make the future bright. Dear sisters, mothers, daughters, and wives. Dear sisters, let us get closer to Allah. Dear sisters, let us learn of Rasulullah. Dear sisters, let's make the future bright. Dear sisters, mothers, daughters, and wives. Dear sisters, let us get closer to Allah. Dear sisters, let us learn of Rasulullah. Dear sisters, let's make the future bright. Dear sisters, mothers, daughters, and wives.